and welcome. In this episode of On the Shop Floor, I am at L&T Defence Facility in Talegaon near Pune, and with me is the head of L&T Defence, Arun Ramchandani, experienced hand and an old hand at L&T, an old hand in Defence Systems. Arun, thank you very much for your
Welcome,
time.
Nitin. Welcome to our Talegaon campus. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. I want to learn what L&T does, but before that, let me ask you, how did you get into defence, or how did you get into this engineering field?
Okay, so I would say that I got into defense by accident.
Okay.
And if we can credit it to somebody, it should be Dr. Kalam.
Okay.
It so happened that, when I joined L&T as a GET, that is a graduate engineer trainee,
Right.
way back in 1984, right out of IIT Delhi.
Okay.
And I joined the R&D department of L&T at Powai.
Okay.
And we were doing all kinds of machinery development. So in those days we used to build cement plants and cement equipment, and there were guys like me and JD Patil who would design this kind of new machinery.
Okay.
And then around that time the IGMDP program started.
Yeah, Integrated Missile Development Program.
And Dr. Kalam felt that we've been doing a lot of work in DRDO, but unless we integrate industry, this program will take a long time. So he reached out to companies like L&T, Tatas, and said that, look, we are doing this program and we would like industry to participate. And so they came to us in the R&D and said that, okay, they want to build some ground systems.
Right.
Ground systems for the Nag missile,
Okay.
ground systems for the Trishul missile. And of course we were very excited. We loved designing machinery, and that's how we got into designing some of the launchers. So what you see here is a Pinaka launcher, which I am one of the early designers of this.
Okay.
Okay, and this was we started the design in the late 80s. Today, of course, it's an inducted weapon system, and we export it.
Sure. And you would have improved upon it quite a lot.
Yeah. So, the interesting thing is that when you build equipment like this, and this is high precision equipment, we are firing the Pinaka rockets, and they travel 40 odd kilometers.
Correct.
And think about it, that if you are just slightly off, when you fire 40 kilometers, just how off the rocket would be. So this had to be very precise. It had to be very rigid, so that when you fire, it just won't go off target. And it was a challenge in engineering, which we enjoyed doing, and of course it's...
So you have a motion platform also in this?
So we have a motion platform, a kind of a turret which moves in the azimuth plane and the elevation plane.
Wow.
And
so it's a combination of those two things.
Yeah, those two things, and a lot of electronics, lot of what we call servo controls. Critical mechanical design, and that's how we built it. And working with DRDO, that was the journey till 2000. From, I would say, the end of the 80s till 2000, about 2 decades of just working with
them and developing with them.
With them. And it was only in 2001 when defense became a licensed sector that we decided that, look, we need to take all the industrial licenses for defense and look at how we can grow this into a bigger business segment. And that's how, defense became a segment in itself.
So you're a witness to this early development.
We are like a startup.
Part of in defense for L&T.
We are a startup within a large conglomerate. And we were somewhere lying in the R&D, and people didn't trouble us much. They didn't ask us, what is your PGIT?
There were no commercials involved there.
How much revenue are you going to do for some time? And then slowly we got into the thing of making a business out of it. And, growing it beyond the R&D into commercial.
But your discipline in IIT Delhi
worked with Dr. Saraswat quite closely.
I see.
And so it's been a very exciting journey.
I can see that.
Both as an engineer and now converting this into a business.
True.
Where We use L&T's engineering capabilities to build products for the nation.
Right, and I think many of them defense vertical can be traced back to about 2001, as you said.
2001, where we were, allowed to directly sell to the MOD and
Exactly. So yeah, even if you take that as a start point, you've already done more than 20 years.
yes.
So what has been the experience in these 20 years?
So it's been a thrilling ride, and I would say in some ways a roller coaster as well.
Okay.
But broadly, we started from a core R&D base. Like I
Right.
told you, 20 years was just focused on DRDO and R&D and maybe doing some stuff for the Navy.
Yeah.
And from then on, we built a number of at least 250 products, that have been built for the armed forces. About 35 of them are in serial production today,
Okay.
which have come out of, R&D efforts and
Right.
stuff like that. And of course, then we looked to scale up. We looked at the K9 Vajra, which came subsequently.
Sure.
We got into warship construction. We've been associated with submarine building. We've, looked at precision equipment at Coimbatore, including aerospace equipment.
Okay.
Again, the aerospace business has its roots with Dr. Kalam. His first were made at Powai.
Oh. Okay.
And actually, that's how he realized that L&T has the capability.
Oh. Okay.
And when he moved to DRDO, he kind of got companies like us into the program.
Interesting nuggets and interesting vision that man had.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where you actually now when you look back, it wouldn't have been easy for him to get private sector involved in what the government was doing essentially.
No, it was a very different world, different environment.
Right.
Today it's very different. We are a large part of what India produces for its defense equipment.
Right.
The share of the domestic industry has been growing.
Correct.
And we see it growing even further. The focus on self-reliance. And I think we are well poised for taking advantage of that, because we've actually built our business on an R&D base.
Absolutely. Like you said, and you are one of those pioneers. But now what is this that you have built?
So this is the MR-SAM launcher for the Indian Air Force.
Yeah, one can see that
Yeah.
written there.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this is the main launcher system. It's on a trailer, and
Right.
again you can see the kind of, it uses precision drive. We've got a mast here for the communication.
Sure.
And this is, equipment which has been built much after I stopped designing.
You got
it's
into the business of
the next generation.
Okay.
Are doing it well and probably doing it better.
Yeah.
And you see, interestingly, it looks pretty simple, but
Yes.
it's very rugged equipment. What you see here are two actuators or two screws.
Okay.
And think about it, they have to be synchronized, because if they move slightly out of sync, the whole system will jam.
Sure.
So that's the kind of expertise that our guys have in designing
Yeah.
these type of synchronized systems.
And it's mobile, right?
It's mobile. This is mobile equipment.
Can be transported
Yeah.
from one place to the
Absolutely.
other. You also have something similar for the army?
We have.
Okay,
right
that's there. Okay.
Right there,
Okay.
we see that for
And-
the army.
Right. And I can see in this last two equipment you have women engineers working here. I mean,
So,
there's this lady and then there are those crews here.
So, Nitin, we really believe in diversity in our organization.
Right.
So, we've got a lot of these young people. Many of them are engineers from the local colleges around here.
Right.
We have about 15% of our defense workforce is women.
Wow.
And
That's
it's-
a high number.
And it's not like women sitting in the offices,
Okay.
but like you can see, these are
Yeah.
young boys and girls who are working on the field,
Right.
operating equipment, integrating equipment, testing equipment.
Sure. So this facility itself, if I understand correctly, is facility for integration and testing also?
Yeah, so we call this an AIT facility.
Okay.
Okay, what you see around here are AIT shops.
Right.
Okay.
That is the assembly,
Assembly, integration and testing.
testing. Okay.
Okay. So we work with an ecosystem of suppliers.
Right.
And each of these equipment will have hundreds of suppliers who work with us.
Right.
Most of them MSMEs. And while they build all that equipment over there,
Right.
it comes here for assembly, integration, testing.
Right.
Of course, we build some of the electronic modules, which
is
in
behind
the shop
this.
behind.
I see. Okay.
And so we build the electronic units here. We get the hardware built in the ecosystem around.
Right.
Some of them in our own factories at Coimbatore or at Hazira, and all of that comes in here. It gets assembled. Assembly is just putting things together. Integration is another thing where mechanical systems talk to hydraulic systems
and electronic
talk
systems.
to electronic systems and all of that.
Yeah.
So that's the integration piece. And then there's testing. We have a lot of special purpose test facilities here.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because of whatever our secrecy requirements, I can't show you
that
all of those.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
in
But
a
we are
broad
on the
sense-
campus. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the broad sense, it's about assembly, integration, testing. Each of these is a critical piece, and we have skill sets for all of these.
Right.
We use a lot of local talent. We train them up, and we believe that this kind of modern equipment,
Right.
which is a mix of technology and manufacturing skills, can be done by the local engineers. They
Right.
can be trained to do this,
Very good.
and they,
I think
many of them become good designers.
Sure.
Many of them.
you're spreading the tentacles, if I can use that word, into tier 2, tier 3
Absolutely.
cities and engineering facilities or engineering institutions.
So when we started, before 2000, we did all this in one of the small shops in Powai.
Okay.
So they used to find us a nuisance because they were doing production and we
Right.
would come and do our prototyping.
Right.
And
And they would say, why are these fellows not doing anything?
Yeah, they're just occupying our shops where prototypes take ages to move out.
Sure.
And now it's a different world. All these equipment, they move out in 18 months, 12 months.
Okay.
Some of them from design to delivery. The timelines are typically 18 months.
Okay.
When we did it, in back then, it sometimes took us 4 years, 5 years to take it from design
To at least a prototype.
complete testing.
Right.
But all of that is evolved. Then we realized that we needed dedicated facilities. And today in our defense, we have 6 facilities which are dedicated for
defense. Yeah.
defense
So
activities.
this is also started about
2008 we
okay.
started.
So nearly 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, one shop came up. We started delivering pinakas. We got our first orders, so the first regiment of pinakas we
I have
delivered.
gone from here.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we sold something, earned some money, plowed it back, made it into a facility.
So this is that army thing that you were
This
talking
is the
about.
Army MR
The MR SAM.
launcher.
Okay.
So you can see the difference between
Yeah.
Army and Air Force.
Yeah.
This is like meant for off-road applications. It's,
Okay. Yeah.
You know,
So it's little more.
it's
it is
more
it is
compact, more
yeah.
mobile.
Exactly.
you know,
More mobile and more compact.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think again same principle
Yeah, the
applies.
principles apply.
Yeah.
But you can just see the kind of engineering, the kind of finishing.
Right.
The product is of international standards.
Sure.
It's,
So talking about international standards, there is an emphasis on exports, for instance, from the
Yes.
Indian defense companies. Government
Yeah.
wants it like that. We will talk about that, but before that, how much of R&D component happens in L&T, and how much emphasis you give on R&D? You spoke about your own experience, but now that you've got all these products, do you go further in tweaking them, in further enhancing their capability?
So, Nitin, as you know, the government has laid a lot of emphasis on IDDM,
Right.
which is Indian Design, Developed, Manufacture.
Correct.
And we thought that it is right for us to keep a focus on that. Obviously, the equipment is going to evolve,
Right.
and we will have to design and develop newer and newer equipment.
Absolutely.
So the focus on R&D is always there, and we spend a good part of our earnings on the R&D.
Okay.
And so that's the kind of thrust that we have, constantly increasing the technical manpower, increasing the R&D manpower. And that close association with DRDO has brought into our R&D engineers that culture of, scientific temper and wanting to develop products.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a big thrust. R&D is a big thrust.
Correct.
Of course, today we build warships and we build battle tanks and we do all of that, and that requires production of a different scale. So there is a lot of manufacturing R&D which also goes on to enable us to produce more efficiently, to produce to international standards. So that's one aspect of it, and the other is developing new products.
Right.
And that is so I mean, tomorrow we are going to look at directed energy systems.
Okay.
We are going to look at unmanned systems, and that's the kind of work which is going on in the R&D.
You're keeping up with times. Really,
we have to keep up with times.
Yeah. So you spoke about different verticals. So this is of course land systems that you just were showing us around, but you also do a lot of work in the naval systems, some of which I know you can't talk about. But whatever you can talk about as far as naval systems are concerned, tell us.
Okay, so on the platform business, we have a strong land vertical and we have a naval vertical.
Right.
Let me talk about the naval vertical. So, of course, there's ships and submarines.
Sure.
And we have a shipyard at Kattupalli. The shipyard sprawls over about 900 acres. Of course, not all of it is shipyard.
Sure.
There are other fabrication yards, etc. But we have a dedicated shipyard which we set up around 2012-13 and invested over 2,000 crores in making a very contemporary shipyard. A lot of the shipbuilding happens inside shop floors.
Right.
And we use a lot of Industry 4.0 techniques to build our ships.
Oh,
so
that's interesting.
It's very advanced techniques. So that's one part, that is the shipbuilding and submarine building.
Right.
We build a lot of naval equipment and weapon systems.
Okay.
So for example, and they are inside the shops, but we're not stepping in.
Obviously, yeah.
But we do anti-submarine warfare, rocket launchers, we do torpedo launchers.
Okay.
So a lot of launch equipment, for the naval. We do a lot of engineering systems. So you'll be surprised to know that we are the biggest suppliers of stabilizers for warships in the country.
Oh, okay.
We are, in fact, almost all the warships have our stabilizers on board. We make the ship steering gear, so the autopilots, the steering gear, we do all of that. We do ship-based radars. Okay, and now as you see here, these are land-based radars.
These are land-based,
but
yes.
we do ship-based radars.
Okay.
We do stabilized platforms on ships. So for radars, for weapon systems.
Right.
So there's a plethora of stuff that we do for the Navy, from equipment to electrical systems, fire control systems, and then the shipbuilding and platform building.
Which you already have that case. But what about doing work with Indian Air Force? Of course, I mean that was there. That's the MRL, the MRSAM launcher. But what about radars? What about?
So you see this equipment here.
Yeah.
These are the search and track radar for the close-in weapon system.
Right.
That hopefully very soon we will be building for the Air Force.
Okay.
We've completed trials against a lot of international competition. We had indigenously built systems. So these systems are coupled with a gun, 40mm gun, and they provide close-in air defense against incoming drones.
So it's not just anti-aircraft, but it's also incoming drones.
Incoming drones as well. So supersonic, subsonic aircraft. But this is low-range, last-ditch defense.
Okay.
So you have search radars.
Right.
You have tracking radars.
Okay.
Which are then able to track and triangulate the target,
exact position,
and then feed it to the gun system. You have electro-optics on the gun, and that's able to.
So it's a hard kill gun.
It's a hard kill system. It's based on a 40mm gun.
Okay.
Which we've taken the old L-70, but given it a completely new look.
Right.
with automatic round feeding. We can select different, you can have programmable ammunition on it.
Oh.
So
okay.
you program every round as it fires,
Right.
so that it has the burst at the right time
Sure.
near the target.
Okay.
So it's very interesting.
Oh, very interesting. What you showed in this campus is lovely. I'm sure you've also done talking about the land systems again. Tell me a little more about K9 Vajra. How did it come about to into
Yeah.
L&T and then from there to the Indian
So
Army?
it's a very interesting story.
Yeah, exactly.
And the after the Bofors gun, the Indian artillery was always looking to the next generation guns
Right.
and the self-propelled howitzers, and this has been an ongoing requirement from the early 2000s.
Sure.
But somehow it never happened. They did try putting a Denel turret on
a tank.
on
Or a BMP.
yeah, on the Arjun. And,
Yeah.
a lot of those things were thought about. A lot of RFPs had been floated, but somehow they didn't get the right bidders and all of that.
Right.
And then around 2011, we had this RFP for the self-propelled howitzers, and at that time, of course, we didn't have the complete technology for doing the ordnance of the gun. So, and that was a buy global case.
Sure.
So, there was no question of developing a gun
Okay.
in that.
You could bring something
again.
and then give it out.
Since in those were the days of buy global.
Buying global, yes.
So, we talked to the Samsung team from Korea at that time. The K9 gun was, quite well known as a good self-propelled
Sure.
howitzer. So we talked to them, and they said, look, we can't participate in this RFP because this RFP says that we will use Indian in-service ammunition.
Oh.
Okay. And the artillery ammunition at that time, which was in use, actually came from the South African origin.
Denel. Okay.
And the artillery rounds have something called nubs on them
Okay.
to give them stability as they spin.
Yeah, okay.
And so the NATO ammunition is a smooth ammunition. It doesn't have these nubs.
Okay.
So the Samsung guys said, look, we have a problem integrating this ammunition with our gun. It requires a lot of R&D.
Okay.
We've done a couple of trials with our R&D, and it looks like it's not such a simple job. It's not a trivial job.
Right.
And it's too risky for us to participate in this program.
Okay.
Because just supposing this R&D doesn't work out, and how our acquisition works, it's all NCNC.
Right.
And so those guys are worried about spending a lot of money doing trials, and then it doesn't work. So we said, look, here's the thing. If you're willing to allow us to lead the program,
Okay.
then we will do this bit of R&D for you. We will take the risk.
Okay.
And of course, you have a product, so we'll adapt the product to meet the
Indian requirement.
Right. And when you put new ammunition, you have to develop the ballistic computers for that and all that. And that means working out the ballistics of that on the gun, programming it into the ballistic control computer and all of that stuff.
Right. Okay.
So that stuff we took over, and Samsung said, okay, if you guys are willing to front end it, the risk is yours.
Yes.
Huh?
So the
We'll
NCNC
support
risk is L&T's.
Yeah. So that's how we got into it.
Okay.
And we built this Vajra. That first prototype was built on this campus.
Okay.
To adapt it for all the requirements.
Right.
Along with ARD, we took it to the field. We fired about 500 rounds, worked out the ballistics,
Okay.
plugged it into the ballistic computer, modified the ammunition handling system to handle this, interfaced it with the gun.
Right.
We did all of that stuff, made the system desert compatible.
Okay.
And with that, then we got we competed against the Russian, and we won that competition.
Excellent. Yeah.
Being Indian vendor in a global, in a global RFP, mandated us, because the whole idea was that they didn't want Indian traders to participate.
Yeah,
in
just get it and then sell it here.
Sell it here.
Yeah.
So we had to demonstrate that we are doing value add, and we had to do 50% indigenous content.
Right.
So when we got the order for 100 guns, we had a choice to build it here. But we realized that we need test tracks and all of that.
Right.
So our chairman suggested, why don't you build it in Gujarat, Hazira?
Okay.
So post the contract, we built an armored system complex.
Wonderful.
We delivered the first 10 guns
Right.
in 18 months. And then of course we delivered up to 50 guns within 12 months. So
And that was done in Hazira, right?
that was done in Hazira in the armored systems complex.
Uh-huh.
But we had to create a whole network. You know, that gun has about 18,000 components which are made in India.
Really?
So
Okay.
think about it, that you know, you have to build 50 guns in a year.
Yes.
Each gun has 18,000
So that's
components.
90,000. More than 90,000. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's only one component I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
So that's the scale at which you have to do things.
Wow.
And we had to build an ecosystem. We had to build the manufacturing capabilities,
Right.
integrate it, put in our electronics and fire control system, and deliver those guns all in 42 months, done ahead of schedule
Excellent.
in COVID times.
Yes, in COVID times. I was going to say that.
So-
And now that is the one of the important gun
Absolutely.
systems fielded in Ladakh against the
Absolutely.
Chinese.
So now that's another interesting story.
Right.
The gun was actually developed for the deserts
Correct.
and the plains.
Yes.
Okay.
With the
And
mobility platform that they
everything,
Yeah.
you know. And then they came this thing that, look, our current geopolitical requirements need us to be at high altitude.
had. Absolutely.
And we need to look at equipment being taken to the high altitude. So again, we had to apply ourselves,
Right.
and out of those regiments, we were able to move one regiment with changes to the power pack system, etc., with different crew heating and other,
Sure.
you know, the ballistics also changes at high altitude.
That rare, rarefied
So
atmosphere.
with doing all of that, we were able to get it up there, and now today you have the Vajra, which is very rare. Nowhere in the world do they operate at these altitudes.
Yeah, exactly. So one final question in this segment is about the light tank that the Indian Army is looking for. Are you, as a company, interested in developing one, or you already developed one? Because we hear some reports. So just tell us where you are on that.
Again, it's an interesting thing because you know, when we built the K9 Vajra and took it to the high altitude, we said, look, we have a basic platform. Maybe we can, you know, transform it into a light tank.
Right.
DRDO was also thinking of developing a light tank.
Sure.
You know, we started talking to each other. We found that we had the right ideas.
Okay.
And then, you know, DRDO selected us as a development partner.
Right.
We
Under that DCPP?
yeah,
project?
under
Okay.
a DCPP
Yeah. Okay.
model.
Yeah.
And then we started building the first prototype. And in about 18 months, we have the first prototype now ready in Hazira.
Okay.
And it's going to start trials April onwards.
Okay.
And again, all the learning, building that ecosystem
Sure.
for the K9, our R&D capabilities, working with DRDO and their Arjun experiences,
Absolutely.
bringing all this together. I don't think anywhere in the world people have developed a new platform in 18 months.
Right.
It should be a world record, you know.
You should apply for Guinness Book of World Record for that.
So we are definitely keen in building that.
Right.
We are, you know, interacting with the user. We are working together with DRDO.
Right.
And I think we will have a great product, which, you know, a 25-ton class tank is a very unique kind of
Absolutely.
equipment.
Very few countries
and
make
we are
them.
really excited about bringing this
Excellent.
product.
Good to know that. I need to take a break at this point in time, but we will continue this conversation with Arun Ramchandani, Head of L&T Defence, and we will talk about other verticals and other strengths and future plans that L&T has going forward. Stay tuned.
This
bridge
is
actually.
Yeah, this is a marvelous piece of engineering
Yeah.
done along with R&D engineers of DRDO.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but obviously they've had such systems, but of smaller size and smaller
Yeah,
tonnage.
so there's been evolution on the bridge development,
Right.
and span of 46 meters is quite unusual.
Correct.
And we are really looking to not only provide this product to our combat engineering,
Yeah.
but to different parts of the world as well, because
Yes.
this is quite universal equipment which can be
required.
required for any army movement wherever you have canals and stuff, which
Yeah, absolutely. And now with conventional wars having made a comeback
absolutely
in Russia and Ukraine, like that. So I'm sure that this
so
will be
think
in
about
demand.
it, if you don't have these kind of equipment, how do you cross the canals, etc.?
Right, absolutely. So talking about sort of selling it to other armies and other militaries, what has been L&T's experience as far as exports are concerned?
So, as you know, Nitin, in the last 10 years, Indian defense exports has grown multifold.
Sure.
And, there is potential now that we have systems which are delivered entirely from the industry.
Right.
There is a lot of potential to export these systems. There are countries that, some of them want to have equipment at more competitive prices, which I think we can offer compared to the Western and NATO world.
Right.
And so the opportunities exist. We have been able to make some breakthroughs. Of course, we have still a long way to go.
I'm sure.
And a lot of the current buyers are buying under the line of credit, but
which the Indian government provides.
With the Indian government provides, but that's the way the rest of our competitors work.
So, yes,
you have the Chinese coming into these markets and providing
maybe at a throwaway price.
Absurd lines of credit. So
Right.
we actually need to push these lines of credit. We need to look at how we can fund some of these, make some credit schemes for countries wanting to buy our equipment.
Right.
And I think the potential exists for us to proliferate our equipment from being an importer of defense equipment to being an exporter.
Yes.
I see that transition happening.
Yeah, we are in the middle of that right now.
Yeah.
I think there's some way off to get there. But do other militaries ask if the Indian military has inducted the equipment? I mean, is it a plus?
It is a plus.
Okay.
Because for two reasons. One, that the world over people know that Indian military has some of the most challenging terrains, the most diverse terrains
Right.
of operations, and any equipment which has undergone Indian trials should be good to operate anywhere in the world.
Right. And also the stringent procurement process, perhaps.
Absolutely. So I don't see that as, I do see that as a big plus for
Yes.
us whenever we say that we've, it's been inducted in the Indian Armed Forces. What the Indian MOD has done now is that they are saying, even if you participated in an Indian trial and cleared the trial, you may not have been L1.
Right.
But we'll give
You
you
may not have got a contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll give you a certificate that your Indian trial cleared,
Oh, which is also a big certificate.
Which is also a help,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, we do want that
support
Yeah, absolutely.
from the MOD
We
and from the Indian government, rather.
So, if you see, the defense equipment selling is always a government-driven selling.
Absolutely.
And to that extent, the Indian government has a very open mind on supporting the defense exports, of course, to friendly countries
Yes,
and
of
all
course.
of that. But there is a good trust, and I really see this becoming a potential opportunity.
Okay. So now let us, of course, see this bridge. But I want you to see in the future. You've
Okay.
done now 40 years in L&T.
Yeah.
Where do you see L&T Defense, of which you have been an integral part right from the beginning? What do you need from the Indian government or Indian military as a support or encouragement? And how do you see L&T Defense evolving further?
Yeah. So if you see, we've kind of built capabilities
Right.
in certain domains, and we want to build on that. We also realize that the future is not going to be the way the past was, and we need to be ready for that. So these are two things which we are doing.
Right.
Right. So looking at land systems, we are looking at various kind of platforms. The light tank is an example. I know there will be an FICV, FRCV.
FICV to be revived again?
To be revived.
Again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wheeled armored fighting vehicles. So there is a whole range of land equipment. You saw a lot of these launchers and all that.
Yeah.
And so one thing we are very clear about is that we are not going to make ammunition and explosives, and we are looking at being platform builders, platform integrators, building solutions for future warfare.
Right.
Not really focusing at the lethal end of the chain.
Not at the end of the barrel, but you're making a barrel basically.
Yeah. So
Right.
that's one thing that we have taken as a policy, that our thrust is in that direction.
Okay.
And so land platforms I spoke about.
Right.
The naval platforms, of course, the ships are there, and there is good export potential on the shipbuilding.
Various classes of ship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there is submarine building. We are participating in the P-75I program, as you
With
know,
a Spanish company.
with a Spanish company,
Right.
Navantia. So it's going to be exciting. We have MDL and TKMS on the other side.
Okay.
L&T and Navantia on this side, and
Right.
we are geared up for this
Competition coming
competition,
up, yeah.
and we are equipped to do it well, because with all our abilities in submarine hull fabrication and outfitting and all of that, we will leverage that. Like I said, we build a lot of naval equipment.
You do.
And the future platforms call for high indigenization.
Right.
You want 60% indigenization on a platform like a ship or a submarine. A lot of equipment have to be built, and we are looking at that as
Right.
something that we would like to do.
Okay.
So that's another leg of the future, the naval leg.
Right.
Now the third emerging leg is the defense electronics,
Okay.
where we see that the focus on sensors, on radars, on directed energy systems, on unmanned systems, on fire control systems, electronic warfare.
Right.
This is a spectrum that we are focusing on, which we believe are going to be more and more relevant in the future, and will start growing while our platform, India is going to need tanks and
Of course.
submarines
Given
and
two
ships.
unsettled borders.
Yeah, and that business will grow.
Right.
But the focus on the higher end electronics and all of that is another segment that we are investing into, and that's a focus area.
Okay.
And then finally there's aerospace.
I see.
So it's defense and aerospace so we are really becoming solution providers, strategic solutions
That's right.
people.
Yes.
And that's what we are really focusing on, and looking at space launch vehicles, looking at satellites. So that's the spectrum that we have set out in our future roadmap.
Right.
And we've created a strong base,
I'm sure.
an organization that has evolved over 40 years.
Correct.
Obviously has, the average experience level in our business is about 10 years, which is something which probably nobody else can boast about, to have people who worked in the domain for 10 years and built that kind of
Right.
experience. So that's the spectrum that we
That we are
have,
looking
and that's what we want to leverage into the
Going
future.
forward.
As India becomes more and more self-reliant, I think we have to be ready for it. We've invested in creating an ecosystem,
Sure.
because I believe that nobody can operate in isolation.
Sure.
And unless we create an ecosystem, so we've created feeder shops here in Chakan, which
Okay.
feed into, like, some of these bridge modules are
Right.
manufactured in
In
workshops,
smaller workshops. Yeah.
So we've created that, because that's how tomorrow we want to deliver 2 bridge sets in a month.
Right.
Unless I create that kind of
And the skill set also has to be
Exactly.
imparted. Yeah.
So we built that base, and I think we are now ready to take off from that base to, a self-reliant India which looks after its own security and the emerging security needs in a future world.
I have no doubt about that. What are the steps you would like the government to take? I know in the last 10 years, the mindset change has been
A lot has been
tremendous.
done. A lot has been
Yeah. But what more can the government do and work with you as the industry?
So there are a few things, of course,
Right.
as an industry, you always feel that you need more support. And I would say the first leg of that support would be to help us do more R&D.
Right.
R&D in defense is very expensive. It doesn't yield quick results.
Absolutely.
And
it's expensive.
it's expensive. And if you're running an industry, we're not a research lab.
Right.
Where you have to keep showing we have to plow back our earnings into R&D, which, like I said, we do a good part of it.
Right.
And a large chunk of our earnings actually go 20-25% of that we plow it
Wow.
back into the R&D
R&D.
of our.
Okay.
the
So you need
profits.
more R&D support
So
from the
we
government.
clearly need, if we want to do cutting edge stuff.
Right.
Now, I was very happy to see the defense minister announce some corpus of 1 lakh crores for deep tech.
Right, which is the new nanotech and AI
so
and
we've
others,
invested
and quantum
in a
computing.
AI center of excellence.
Okay.
And all of that. So clearly there's
There's
funding
appetite for
required.
that.
Yeah, there's appetite for all of that, and there's resources required to do that.
Right.
And the look at it world over.
Okay.
All the advanced platforms have been built with government funding.
Of course, and very close collaboration.
Absolutely. So that's one thing I feel is very, very crucial if we have to become an independent, self-reliant, manufacturer and developer of equipment.
Right.
That's one part of it. Of course, the government is again investing a lot in testing facilities. As you can see that, any equipment that you build has to be extensively tested. So we build this moat just to make sure that,
Exactly.
And so there's a focus on testing, and again I see funds being allocated for
Right.
that, and the DTIS scheme is there.
Yes.
If there's one thing that I would really urge the government to do, that would be to speed up the procurement process.
Okay, the timelines need to be squeezed.
We first go through a development cycle, then we
Right.
go through a trial cycle, then we go through the contracting cycle, then we go through an approval cycle.
Yes.
And all of this can make it unviable for industries to sustain. If, like for example, we delivered 100 K9s in 42 months, but it takes, another 24 months, 36 months to get the
repeat order
in place. So if all of this could happen more quickly,
right,
more effectively, then that would be a big enabler for the industry.
But overall, you are bullish about the defense business.
I am bullish about the defense business. Another thing that we can talk about is these credit funding for the exports and all that.
Sure.
Supporting the MSME base
Right.
to become a tierized thing.
Yeah.
Looking at more modern acquisition processes which give equal weightage to capability and technical performance as much as L1.
So L1 T1 model you're talking about?
Something like that. So these are some of the things which I think an evolving and maturing industry would need.
Right.
And I'm confident that the government will support it. Their heart is in the right place.
Absolutely.
They are pushing the...
And the Atmanirbharta is the mantra now.
Is there. So
exactly.
we can ride that wave, and if we just facilitate this ease of doing business, understanding for the industry, it's all about, contract to cash cycle and how
Absolutely.
to
The bottom line is always about how much business you've
Yeah.
done, how much
how
profit
much
you're
you
doing.
earned. And,
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
that's what it is
That's
all
right.
about.
Great, Arun. Thank you very much for this extensive discussion and
Pleasure, Nitin.
great insights of what L&T has, how it has evolved and how it has come to this stage. I'm
Pleasure.
sure it's got many more, targets to capture and
Sure.
reach newer heights.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Nitin. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you. That was Arun Ramchandani, head of L&T Defence. We are at their Talegaon facility and you are watching On the Shop Floor with me, Nitin Gokhale. In the next episode of On the Shop Floor, we travel to Hyderabad to look around what the Bharat Dynamics Limited or BDL does for the three armed forces. Do watch the episode on Sunday.